I'm thinking to the famous word of Mr. Gorbachev. Yes, consensus это главное. Michel wanted, when it's on my previous presentation, Michel remarks that I was maybe a little bit too much optimistic about the situation in France. In fact, I wanted to introduce you the principle of how we work and what we want to negotiate. I don't want to give the impression that France is the paradise of public, because we are fighting every day to obtain a certain right to enter decision, and as soon as we stop fight, it seems that it tends to vanish. So it's always the same, I guess, in every country. But at least it's very important to negotiate something in the legal framework, because it has a certain sustainability. Now I am coming to my next presentation, which was regarding the research project PREPAR, which is a big European research project in the frame of which I am involved with other researchers and NGOs on trying to, let's say, take the experience of Fukushima and to take the lessons in order to see how we should adapt our systems of information and participation during emergency, but also during post-accident situation. So this PREPAR project is a huge one. There are 45 research institutions involved. It's mostly a technical project, as you can see in this figure. It's about modelization of contamination transfer in the food, about operational procedures for long release, atmospheric modeling, aquatic modeling. It's a business of experts, of technical experts. But at least we have succeeded to introduce there a certain work package that is regarding information and participation of the public during emergency situation. So, in this work package, the goals are to investigate the condition and means for pertinent, reliable and trustworthy information to be made available to the public in due time and according to the needs of the public in the course of a nuclear emergency and post-accident context. You understand that the question of trustworthiness of information is of course crucial, because most of the time there is no trust regarding the available information, and the problem is to find this good information. We also have the idea of taking into account the complexity and dynamic dimension of information flows, as we see it in the Fukushima situation, which regarding the role of the public is quite different of the Chernobyl situation, because there are totally new conditions that are there. And we would like to ground on the empirical analysis of the dynamic of information related to the Fukushima experience, but also the understanding of the Fukushima accident in Europe, and the way European people have tried to understand what was at stake in this context. I give you some clue. Of course, we ground on the Earth Convention. This is our Bible, the Earth Convention. I read it again. This is the article 5.1.c. In the event of any imminent threat to human health or the environment, whether caused by human activities or due to natural causes, all information which could enable the public to take measures to prevent or mitigate harm arising from the threat is disseminated immediately and without delay to the members of the public who may be affected. So this is a glorious goal. This is wonderful. Practically, it is very difficult to implement, as we will see. Because, of course, you will see that we adopt here exactly the opposite point of view of the let's say, the normal planning perspective. In the normal planning perspective, you say, well, we are organizing things and they will happen well. We will issue the information, people will need information, we will give information, we put in place everything and it will work well. We adopt exactly the opposite perspective. We start from the idea that post-emergency situation will be a chaos for many reasons. The breaking of the process and routines to deal with the complexity, and among other mechanisms, the breaking of social trust. This is our hypothesis, because in most cases, social trust is broken. In the course of the management of the radiological event, the arising complexity is not expected to be dealt with by usual processes and routines. That means it will not be suddenly, let's go back to the former system, the authority we will trust and they will say what we will do. No, it will be different. It's another system that will enable to cope with this chaos. Emergency phase is expected to turn into a chaos and nightmare for local population. That was observed. Of course, it was observed in the Chernobyl context. I've been studying this myself, but it was also observed in the Fukushima context. So this is our starting point, and here we make one hypothesis, which I read to you. There are potential kinds of interactions, notably between a plurality of experts, between experts and the public, between members of the public at community level, between themselves, through the channel of social media, that may constitute a basis for dealing with the emerging complexity and makes it possible to find new patterns of coordination and social trust that are different from the previous routines, procedures, organization and delegation before the event. Of course, when I'm talking here of social trust, it's not the instrumental vision of social trust. It is just a statement that if we are to deal with those complex situations that are created by huge contamination arising at the heart of the life and activities of the people, we won't find a solution with only individuals. That means that individuals need to cooperate, they need to organize themselves, they need to benefit from support, from expertise, but from various kinds of expertise. But we need to find a way to build this trust. And it is crucial, because otherwise we won't deal with this problem. But it will be probably new systems, new patterns of coordination. So, I have little time, and I've been asked to cut a little bit. So, this project has been started early 2013, and will end by the end of 2015. There are several blocks here. One is about the experts, because we have the idea that experts, when they interact, they can create favorable conditions for people to understand what is at stake, or on the contrary, they can end with lots of controversies, and this doesn't help the local population. Whereas we can see that the plurality of experts, the fact, the existence of several categories of experts, the institutional experts, the experts of the NGOs, the experts from the universities, if they are able to interact, maybe they won't agree on what is to be done, but at least they can agree on the interpretation of the scientific data which is available or not available. For instance, it is clear that in the beginning of a nuclear accident, only maybe 10% of the information is available. And so everybody is making guess, is trying to imagine. So this is typically a situation where we have observed, we have organized two seminars, and one is to come up in the coming months. but we organized in Lisbon a seminar with experts, with NGO experts, with institutional experts, with universities, just to discuss with them how can we, or how can you manage to contribute to help the people to elaborate a reliable vision of what is at stake. And here we have seen that a major problem is distrust among the experts. Even if they don't agree on what is to be done, shall we evacuate or not? This is a decision which is grounded partly on information, on scientific facts, if they are available, but it's also a question of values. I think we must evacuate. Maybe experts will totally disagree on that, but maybe they will agree on the basic information. For instance, has the core melted? Are we in a very serious accident, or still can we go back to a less serious situation or not? This is the type of exchange, of dialogue between experts that will help the local population. Sometimes it's very important, if you don't trust the official information, it's very good to be able to see gentle interaction between experts who do not share the same point of view. That is something that we have seen in the Fukushima context, has helped the local population to make his own vision of the problem. So the second seminar that we have organized was a few months ago. It was in November. It was in Tromsø, in the north of Norway, and where we have brought local actors from Japan and also local actors from Norway that have been affected by the Chernobyl accident and are still affected, like farmers, like different kind of industry that still today are suffering from the contamination from Chernobyl, and notably the Sami population that is particularly affected because they are living from the reindeer production. And this seminar has brought a lot of insight on the way social communities or local communities can build their own devices for monitoring radioactivity, how they can cooperate together to elaborate their own understanding of the contamination of their environment. So I won't go now into detail. I hope I will have maybe the opportunity later on in a future roundtable to go back with the result of this project. But this was just to give you a flavor of what is at stake into this project. But what I can say is that the major conclusion that is arising now, maybe the most important conclusion, is that it is only the social system, that means the community, that is able to rebuild procedure to cooperate, that can develop a process of rehabilitation. That means that public policies today mostly are organized to orient people, but not to help them to take their own decisions and to make the trade-off. For instance, we were discussing the standards earlier with Michel. It's a key problem. Shall I go back to my own country with my children or not? Do I accept a certain level of contamination? Japanese people say, if one is to live in a contaminated area, it has to know his history and why he wants to live there. Because otherwise, this is not a technical decision. It's not a decision that can be taken by the expert. Those people have to understand what is behind the norms and the standards. The first time I worked here nearby in Belarus, in a village called Olmani, in the Brest region, it was the 5 millisievert zone, voluntary relocation. I discussed with people. I've seen, for instance, that they were not able to make a difference between, let's say, contaminated milk. The standard was 111 becquerel per liter. So they were not able to make a difference between a milk which was, let's say, 130, which is a little bit more than the standard, and 2,500. Because for them it was just contaminated. But if you are living in a village, it's very important to know the difference between 130 and 2,500. So this is the type of, let's say, means that will help a population to rebuild and to re-elaborate strategies and transition paths towards a kind of rehabilitation. Thank you.